Okay, let's dive into this. Ancient alchemy versus modern engineering, the skincare face-off. Today we're unpacking a really unconventional showdown, an explainer that pits two completely opposite worlds against each other to solve an incredibly common problem. On one side we've got ancient history, and on the other the absolute bleeding edge of modern clinical technology. It's a fascinating setup, honestly, because it forces us to question our most basic assumptions about what actually works. Can a pile of dirt from the Levant actually outperform a $1,000 ultrasonic device? Now, it sounds kind of ridiculous when you say it out loud, doesn't it? But, it cuts straight to this universal and frankly super frustrating problem that so many of us deal with. How on earth do you actually clear out clogged pores? The source text here immediately hooks us by asking if the ultimate answer is literally buried in the soil or if it's locked inside some incredibly expensive machine.
So let's look at the tail of the tape for this matchup. We're going to start with contender number one, ancient Middle Eastern volcanic silt. Now this isn't something cooked up in a sterile white laboratory. Not at all. This has earthy, deeply historical origins, pulled straight from the Levant. We're talking about an approach that's deeply rooted in the physical geography and ancient history of the Middle East. It's raw, it's natural, and man, it brings a massive legacy to this face-off.
Now, what's really interesting about this is exactly how our source chooses to characterize this first contender. It is quite literally described as a pile of dirt. That is the exact phrasing they use. Sourced directly from the Levant, it represents literally centuries of ancient alchemy. Think about how counterintuitive that feels for just a second. We live in this modern era, right? We're surrounded by limitless tech, so the idea of relying on literal dirt from the ground to get perfectly clear skin, well, it totally goes against our modern instincts. Yet, that deep, deep history backing this volcanic silt, it makes it a surprisingly formidable opponent.
And waiting in the opposite corner, we have our technological heavyweight. Contender number two, clinical-grade iontophoresis. This contender represents the pristine, highly engineered, absolute cutting-edge pinnacle of modern clinical engineering. It's literally the polar opposite of ancient alchemy. We are stepping entirely away from the natural earth of the Middle East, and we're walking straight into the ultra-controlled, sterile environment of modern clinical labs.
To really demystify this high-tech approach, iontophoresis, at least in this context, is a modern engineering technique found within clinical-grade ultrasonic devices. And what's the actual core mechanism at play here? Well, the text tells us it utilizes high-frequency vibrations. So instead of relying on the elemental chemical properties of that ancient silt, this modern method uses really precise, rapid physical movement that's engineered specifically to tackle those stubborn, clogged pores.
But of course, all of that brilliant modern engineering comes with a massive catch. $1,000. Yep, that is the sticker shock attached to this clinical ultrasonic device. When you really stop and think about it, it's pretty staggering to calculate just how many literal tons of dirt you could buy for $1,000. So, on one hand, you've got this inexpensive, naturally occurring element, and on the other, a highly engineered, vibrating clinical tool that demands a seriously massive financial investment. And this brilliantly illustrates a really fundamental question about how we try to solve our everyday problems. It's volcanic silt from the Levant going head-to-head with clinical iontophoresis. Do we look backward to what the Earth naturally provides us, or do we look forward to what a machine can engineer for us? It's basically Mother Nature, armed with centuries of ancient alchemy, directly challenging modern engineering and its ultrasonic tech.
Breaking these two wildly different approaches down side by side, the origins couldn't be more distinct. We're looking at the raw, geographical reality of the Levant versus the highly manufactured environment of clinical labs. The mechanisms, they pit centuries of ancient alchemy directly against high-frequency vibrations. And the financial cost honestly provides the starkest contrast of the whole shebang. A pile of dirt versus a $1,000 price tag. Truly understanding the sheer scale of the differences between these two skincare philosophies is exactly what makes this comparison so captivating.
So the crucial point is a really big question our source raises. Is modern engineering just expensive hype? When we look at that $1,000 price tag for an ultrasonic device and compare it to the earthy alternatives, well, we have to pause. We have to wonder if consumers are simply wasting their hard-earned money on flashy tech. If ancient, inexpensive methods like the volcanic silt can perform just as well, or, hey, potentially even better, then perhaps those high-frequency clinical vibrations are more about clever marketing than they are about actual superior results. Let's move to the experiment setup and see how this builds into the ultimate test outlined in our source. The setup is remarkably straightforward, actually. Step 1, pit the ancient volcanic silt directly against the clinical-grade iontophoresis. Step 2, test their ability to clear pores. That is the literal only metric that matters here. And step 3, see if traditional alchemy can actually beat out those engineered high-frequency vibrations. It is the absolute ultimate proving ground for these two wildly different approaches.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought of the day. Which side truly clears your pores? Our source claims that you will not believe the results when this David versus Goliath matchup finally concludes. Will the $1,000 clinical machine actually justify its massive cost, or will the ancient pile of dirt reign supreme? I really want you to keep this incredible showdown in mind the next time you look at your own routine. Always keep questioning whether the complex machine or the simple earth is what actually gets the job done.